Welcome to Third Space Reading Room. We are so glad you're here. Third Space Reading Room, aka the Inner City Club of Cleveland. We are a Black radical imagination bookstore based here in the historic Glenville neighborhood. This is a space for dreaming and scheming. And I have to say, on behalf of my team at Third Space, we are just so honored to welcome you all here into our living room to really expand our imaginations about the possibilities. So I'm Mordecai Cargill. I'm the co-founder and chief creative officer for Third Space Action Lab, and Third Space Reading Room. I'll start by saying that Mark Joseph is a longtime friend of Third Space and a mentor and a thought partner and inspiration to both of the Third Space founders, myself and Evelyn Burnett. His extensive research and practitioner-oriented scholarship has informed my own sense of the complexity inherent in applied social justice work. Particularly how to transform neighborhoods into places that are worthy of the people who live there. His scholarship has also inspired me to think differently about the possibilities and to think with enough respect for the magnitude of the problems that we're trying to take on. As a side note, some of you may know that my partner and I kind of started Third Space with a bang. There was a controversial article that preceded our official founding, and one of the first people who reached out to us to offer some guidance in that moment, not uncritical guidance, but loving, thoughtful guidance, to really inquire about what we were wrestling with and to not diminish the enthusiasm and the fervor with which we professed these things out into the world before we had an idea of how to do them, but some, let's say, gentle nudging, like, okay, so what does this really mean? And 7 years later, we're still here.
Well, all right.
We're still here. We wouldn't be here without our dear friend, Mark Joseph. But I should also say that one of the greatest honors in my career to date has been for Third Space to be featured in this season of the fantastic Bending the Arc podcast. If you haven't already checked it out, I mean, after you leave here, of course, go check that out for sure. But that honor is only rivaled by the opportunity to host tonight's discussion. A celebration of his first, hopefully not last, collection of didactic fiction entitled Changing the Narrative, Short Stories to Advance Antiracism. So let me tell you a little bit about the book, and we're going to bring it to life in this panel. So Changing the Narrative, Short Stories to Advance Antiracism is a compilation of 8 short stories that reveal key insights and guidance about how to promote anti-racism in practical ways. Through compelling characters and storylines with unexpected twists, and I mean unexpected twists, Mark provides a highly readable guidebook to practicing everyday anti-racism. A fated plane flight, a mysterious pandemic that bestows superpowers, a revealing mother-daughter reunion, visionary teens who upend the status quo at their high school, an unexpectedly restorative journey to West Africa for 2 military veterans. Joseph takes the reader on a deeply moving experience of revelation and inspiration. Each story is followed by an author's reflection and discussion questions that help readers delve even deeper into the volume's themes. And finally, before I pass the mic, I would be remiss if I didn't just read Mark's bio. I know you told us not to, but a little bit of a maverick on the mic here. So nonetheless, Mark Joseph is the Leona Bevis / Marguerite Hanem Professor in Community Development and the founding director of NP3, Nurturing People, Power, and Place, which conducts research and consulting projects in cities across the US and Canada. His research focus is mixed income development as a strategy for promoting urban equity and inclusion. He's a co-author of the award-winning book, Integrating the Inner City, The Promise and Perils of Mixed Income Public Housing Transformation, and co-editor of What Works to Promote Inclusive, Equitable Mixed Income Communities. Mark's extensive education includes a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Chicago, Master's of Arts, also from the University of Chicago, and a Bachelor's from Harvard University. But what I'll end on is two things that I feel give us a snapshot into my friend's character and his philosophy for scholarship. In response to the question why I teach, he says, I teach because there is no better way to continue to grow and learn in my own knowledge and thinking, while also inspiring and equipping the next generation of change makers. And why I chose this profession, he says, I chose this profession because it is motivated by a social change mission and guided by principles of belonging, interdependence, and collective thriving. Please join me in welcoming Professor Mark Joseph and a fabulous panel for this incredible discussion. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you, Mordecai Cargill. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to see you. We have a fantastic group gathered here on the east side of Cleveland in the historic Glenville neighborhood on a frigid winter's night. So the fact that all of you all have made it out here, I'm deeply, deeply gratified. You could be cozy up warm. Speaking of cozy up warm, our live stream audience is cozy warm right now. So welcome. And I happen to know that we've got folks literally coast to coast who are watching us right now. So welcome. And we have some folks from overseas watching us, international. So this is truly a local, national, and global event. And we are thrilled to be able to launch the book here. I can truly think of no better place on the planet to launch a book of short stories on anti-racism than right here in the Third Space reading room, as I said, in the historic Glenville neighborhood. Yeah, give it up. I think this is the kind of thing that they made this place for. There's been just an array, a treasure of activities and events over their first 5 years. Can't wait to see what the next 5 years is going to look like. And Mordecai mentioned Bending the Arc series. So we have dedicated a 7 podcast episode series to telling you the story of Third Space. We have gotten 5 already out there. One of them is actually about the space and about liberated spaces, and we recorded right here. Media Vision came out and was set up. So please check out. You can start with episode 32. That's Evelyn and Mordecai, and go from there. So definitely check that out. Huge thanks to Evelyn and Mordecai for hosting. Special thanks to Sean Clark. Sean, if you could give a wave. Sean has executive produced this. Yep, give us a hand. So from start to finish, thank you, Sean, for everything you've done, including the marketing, great marketing. And I just want to say Third Space is truly modeling what I see as the next generation of anti-racist community development. They're writing about it, studying it, but also showing it and doing it. So please, if you don't know about them, Google Third Space Action Lab. I like to think of them as radical imagination in action. If you want to see what radical imagination looks like, check out the work of Third Space. This series, or tonight's event, is also sponsored with huge gratitude by the McBride Lecture Fund at Case Western Reserve University. When I reached out and said, I'm doing this thing, would the university be willing to sponsor it? And very quickly, I heard back that there was a lecture fund that would sponsor it. And special thanks to Julian Rogers, who is the Associate VP for Local Government Relations and Community Affairs at the university. So thanks to Julian. Can we give him a hand? Thank you, guys. Also want to thank the Media Vision team. So there's all this audiovisual stuff you see happening here. These are the Case Western folks who have brought this all over from the university. When Sean and I were talking about how we wanted to do this, and I said, I've got an idea to have discussants who've been in the anti-racism class. And he's like, well, how many? And I was like, there would be 4 of us. And he's like, whoa, that's kind of getting to a spot where we may not have all the audiovisual. So I said, well, would it be okay if we reached out to Media Vision at Case? He said, that would be fantastic. Reached out to them, so here they are, making sure we can do this and have the live stream and have a recording. So huge thanks to Media Vision for being here. I want to acknowledge, and I hope she's able to watch tonight, but she's a busy mom of 2, Joni Hirsch-Caden, who is my business assistant and graphic designer for my everyday anti-racism work. She helped me produce the book and get it published. She helped me finalize this version of the anti-racism framework that you see behind us, and she designed the cover of the book, which I just love more and more every time I see it. So huge thanks to Joni Hirsch-Caden. Shout out to my team at NP3. Love hearing it come off your tongue there. Mordecai, nurturing people and power in place at the university, for all their support, marketing this event, and of course, while I was doing the writing of the book. In particular, our Associate Director, Debbie Wilbur, who's right here tonight with her daughter, Zusha. Hey, Zusha. Thank you for being here to support me. And a shout out to my family. My wife, Meilani, is here in the back row. Thanks, Meilani. And our 3 next generation change agents, Layla, Malik, and Ayande, who I believe are watching tonight. So a special hello to them. And then I have a surprise family attendee tonight. My brother, Anthony, walked in a moment ago. He drove up from Columbus to be here. Apparently he's driving back to Columbus tonight, so we won't even get to chat too much. But please give it up for AJ coming up to support his brother. That is awesome. And a huge thank you to my wonderful panel of discussants. I'm going to get to introduce you fully in a moment, but thank you each. Each of them enthusiastically, immediately upon asking, said they wanted to be a part of it. So I cannot wait to hear from them. All right, so the flow for tonight's event. I'm going to lead off with a little bit of background on the book. You heard a little bit from Mordecai, but I'm going to say a little bit more about the book. I'm then going to bring our discussants in and pose some questions to them. Then we'll flip the script, and they will get to ask me questions. They know the questions that are coming. I have no idea the questions that are coming. So that's where it'll get very interesting. And then we'll open up for some audience Q&A, and then we'll have some time to mix and mingle. We have plenty of food for those here to reward you from coming out on this frigid night. This is very comfortable. So if you get a little peckish, get on up. We have some wine back there, some apple cider. So help yourselves. Your neighbors will let you out. They'll save your seat and come on back. So feel free. Don't worry. This is very, very informal and comfortable. All right. So to the book. And as Mordecai already shared, really I wrote the book to bring to life in a fictional form this everyday anti-racism framework, which I hope those on the live stream are able to see. As you can see, there are 8 elements to the framework. And there is one story for each of the elements. And so it really was an opportunity to go deep on an element, challenge myself, number one, what do I mean by curiosity in terms of anti-racism? What do we mean by truth? What do we mean by healing? And then put it into a form that could help readers grapple with that a little more deeply. For me, when we talk about everyday anti-racism, often when we think of anti-racism, we think about policy change and disruption of inequitable social structures, and that is anti-racism, but it's not the only way. And in fact, perhaps more importantly, anti-racism happens through everyday intentional actions by each of us. Literally, you could do hundreds of anti-racist actions a day, and each of those actions have ripple effects in the people who are around you and experience them. So to me, I really wanted to center this everyday anti-racism piece in addition to the bigger, weighty, systems change anti-racism. Both very important, but I think sometimes we feel helpless. What can I do? And in fact, there are so much you can do. And I hope that's what the characters and the plots in these short stories make come alive. Is there really is so much we can each be doing. I call this genre of writing, and you heard it from Mordecai, didactic fiction, because it truly is teaching and explicitly teaching. So I think future writing that I do might not be as kind of make sure the reader gets it, and might be a little bit more of that abstract kind of, what do you see in this? This is not meant to confuse anyone. This is meant to come right at you. You know what I'm saying. And in fact, even to make sure, I include an author's reflection after each story. And I tell you exactly what I was thinking, and exactly why I wrote the story, and exactly what I hope you can wrestle with as you go the story. So in a way, you can think of it as a cross between fiction and a textbook. So see what you think, and we'll see what our discussants think. So I'm hugely excited so far about the discussions we've had, particularly in class. We've had a book club series at the university. So I've already gotten to begin engaging with folks around this. And these discussants were brave enough to take my Everyday Anti-Racism class, which I co-teach with Dr. Jenny King and Braveheart Galani. And so they had read the stories. So they had no excuse. When I reached out to them, they couldn't say, oh, we don't have time to read them. They'd read them, and they just needed to look back at them. So we appreciate that. So let me tell you a little bit more about these amazing discussants. Gwendolyn Garth, right here to my right. When we email each other, she calls me sister friend, and I call her brother friend. I call her sister warrior. So this is really my sister right here. She's a social practice artist who uses multiple mediums as she weaves together storytelling, community building, and healing. Ms. Gwen is the founder and visionary leader of a grassroots art service nonprofit organization called Kings and Queens of Art. She also has a for-profit business called Art by Garth. Ms. Gwen has 27 years of uninterrupted sobriety and is an alumna of the carceral system. I like how you put that. She calls herself an artivist, an artist activist, an artivist. So that is Ms. Gwen. I'm so glad you're here. Let's give it up for Ms. Gwen. On her right is Miss Cynthia Smith. Cynthia currently works as a career coach for Towards Employment. I'm sure many of the Clevelanders have heard of the great work of Towards Employment, where she assists 18 to 24-year-olds, young adults, pursuing workforce and personal development. She serves also as lead associate minister at Olivet Institutional Baptist Church, where her responsibilities include women's ministry and grief support. She has a BA in political science from Case Western, a JD from Cleveland State, and is pursuing a Master of Divinity. She spent more than 2 decades engaged in a community-based legal practice where her philosophy was to take her service to the urban neighborhoods where people live. Please give it up for Cynthia Smith. All right, for our next discussant, I have to get a little Yoruba on you to pronounce his name. Oluwatimileyan. Timmy for short. When he first came to class, and I was like, what's your name? He said, Timmy. I was like, okay, but what is your name? Then he said, Oluwatimileyan. I said, I'll call you Timmy. Last name, Oborisade. And it's beautiful. Oluwatimileyan means God is with me in Yoruba. Timmy is a graduate student at Case Western Reserve University. He's currently pursuing a PhD in sociology. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Sociology from Bowen University, graduating with distinction, and later obtained his Master's of Arts in Sociology from Case. His research interests include medical sociology, life course, and aging in America, with a particular focus on how structural and institutional factors influence individual and community outcomes. Give it up for Oluwatimileyan. All right, let's get into discussion. So for our discussants, first question is, how would you each describe this short story volume? What is this thing? And can you give us a sense of how reading the volume has impacted you? And Miss Cynthia, we're going to start off with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I get into answering the question, I'm going to do the political thing. And I'm going to talk about how I came to meet Dr. Mark. I was working through towards employment at Wood Hill, and he was there with the project that was going to relocate all of the residents of the Wood Hill Estates into new housing. And the next thing I knew, I was going back to towards employment, and I saw a class being offered, Classroom Without Walls, through Fresh Start, and I thought, that sounds interesting. And guess who I met when I got to class? There was Dr. Mark. So that let me know that he was a person who was not just talking the talk, he was walking the walk. Now, may I talk about the short stories? He calls it didactic fiction. I call it people I know who've done things that I've seen. It's fiction if you don't know people who have walked through the racism of our society. But I can tell you, each and every story represents someone that I've encountered over the course of my long career. I'm probably the oldest person who's been in the class, and I had a birthday yesterday. It was wonderful, but we're not going to talk about it. But I think the stories are really a reflection of our society. And some of it is so specific, I could give you names for the people that the stories represent. I told Dr. Mark when we were in class, we were reading through on, well, I printed out all of mine because I'm old school. But we were reading online, and when I got my book, I thought, this is actually quite amazing. And I've indicated that I would like to do this as a book study at our church because I think that everybody should get involved in not just trying to understand, but understanding the everydayness of what racism really looks like. So I'm excited. I'm toning it down because I can get really enthusiastic. But I think it is an awesome exploration into the multiple facets of where racism starts, how it is internalized within the African American community. And I'll get to that shortly.
Uh-oh, I think I know what story we might be talking about.
You know where I'm going.
All right. Ms. Gwen, how about you?
Oh, well, I want to start off by saying, telling Mordecai or remind, I forget. I got an outdoor voice, so I'm not used to this, because I like to talk with my hands, I guess. I want to remind Mordecai that him and Evelyn are carrying on a tradition. I grew up in Glenville during the shootout. And so this was a hangout and a place where we came, listened to jazz and books. He's just carrying on this is a heavy tradition, you know. Some of the kids are kind of missing the real revolutionary who walked and talked, you know, was in the streets, you know, really fighting back at that time. Dr. Mark is a revolutionary, but he don't have the pistols and stuff. And things like that, you know. But I agree with my colleague here that these are everyday stories that really reflect what's happening in our neighborhoods and what's happening. These are real people. These are real stories, and I think I got you beat on the oldest in the class, okay, in the classes. But it helped change. I consider myself a disruptor. Antiracism gave me another name for that, you know, and I like that part. I like I always like things that make me go, And just like you, I was curious when I saw the flyer says classroom without walls. I said, oh yeah, okay, let me go. You know, that's the kind of thing, because I know it's going to be some different kind of learning in a classroom without walls. You know, that something that you want to be have the sameness to it. You know, I like different stuff. Radical stuff, you know. And I love I just really love some of the surprises in the stories, especially with the, what was it, the Black Boys, yeah, and that group there. And I learned a new word, how do you say it, didactic. And I said, okay, now I'm gonna open up the dictionary first and, and then go to the stories. But I enjoy going back, you know, having them in the class, and then when you asked us to be on the panel, I had to go check out some things, some more particulars for the questions I'm gonna ask you, okay? All right, so I'm passing the mic.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen. Timmy.
Yeah, I mean, first I need to thank him for like the opportunity to take the class, because I kind of like registered late, so I had to like write to him to give me the permission to register for the class. But I really like learned a lot while reading it, and coming from a different society where my lived experience is different compared to the new society I found myself. So I would say the book was kind of like very insightful for me. It served like as like a powerful and emotional window to see how anti-racism could be like done in everyday life. And the book didn't just like talk like, oh, it's like an abstract theory or a test. It's kind of like grounded in like lived experiences of people, family, politics, I mean like everyday life generally. And it's the way the story kind of like move fluidly between like realistic situations, imagined scenario, but still it's still like grounded in like real life experiences of like race, power, and hope generally. So I would say it's a fantastic book to read. It's very insightful. And I think one thing that like stood out for me while reading it is the book didn't just like show what was broken. It kind of like shows what like change could really look like if it's been done properly. So it's a very insightful book for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Timmy. Appreciate that. All right, let's hear each of your favorite short stories, or one of your favorites. And so what story would you pick? Now, we got to be careful because there are some twists. So we try to keep this spoiler-free, if we can. So without revealing too much, why did you like that particular story? What did you get out of it? Why was that one of your favorites? And Ms. Gwen, why don't we start with you on that one?
My favorite, okay. I think I had a favorite before you asked me. I think the one where the white guy is faced to look at his privilege. So
Okay.
yeah.
So,
And
the truth will get you freed.
Yes, yes. It made me go back to, I went back to my bookshelf and pulled out Black Like Me. it made me think of that. And a couple of your stories made me think of that. Well, because that was a profound book for me. I think if judges knew before they sentenced you to prison, if they knew the possibility that you might come out a learned person, because you do have the opportunity to read, okay, I don't think they would consider that punishment, you know. But you spend a lot of time reading, and you get to thinking. I got with myself on the self-talk, and so I was able to face myself, and I liked the way the white person was looking at itself, you know, really questioning, you know, his actions, yeah.
And the connection to Black Like Me, what was it about the stories that had you thinking about that book and pulling it out?
Because John Griffin, the author, had the nerve, the audacity, he had the balls to change the color of his skin and go in and find out what it was really like. You know, in that time, that era, you know, in the South, oh my God, you know, that was a lot of courage. He was really drawn, wanting to know and to understand, to walk in somebody's shoes, somebody else's shoes. And that took a lot of nerve. And I think a lot of times, that's why this type of conversations, having this podcast, we need more of those, and like your classroom without the walls, so we won't be bounded by traditions on the conversations that we have, where we can be, because your classes were safe spaces. Okay, I was in the classroom a couple of times. I faced my own prejudices, my own biases, because it was you know, when we had those little small groups, it was a young lady. I was in there with two people who were of Caucasian colored skin, but they weren't white. You know, and I assumed, you know, and we had that discussion, but the 20 minutes go too fast, so we could we had to break up, and you'd be wanting more of how to understand, you know, and they about past, and one was, in fact, she was Asian American, and the other was Italian American, so they had a little bit of mix, and they could pass for either. You know, and we got on that subject of passing, okay, but it was time to stop. You know, we couldn't talk anymore.
I know. It's always hard with those small groups.
Right, yeah.
This
yeah.
point you're making about the connection to Black Like Me is fascinating to me. For those who don't know, many of you may know the book, but this was a gentleman, white guy, back in the 60s probably,
Yeah.
who literally went
50,
back and disguised
I think
himself
it's
as a black
58,
person.
58.
58, went down
Yeah.
south. But it's helping, I mean, that was part of the point of the book, and what I've gotten to see in reading groups of folks getting to experience something through the story that they wouldn't be able to do themselves in real life. And so things like internalized racism among black people, sounds like we might be talking about that in a minute. How would a white person get to be in that conversation, right? So that very much was part of my goal with the fiction, is you can just jump someone into a space and a mindset that they wouldn't normally, and hopefully help that way kind of shift their perspective. Timmy, how about you? Favorite story and why?
My favorite, one thing I still like appreciate about the book is it's like an everyday occurrence. Like what she just said now, she spoke about internalized beliefs, and just shoot off my favorite story about a passenger, which like comes off on like a commercial airplane. This is where a particular place we've all been. We all know how the routine is. Like everybody just get on their seats, and I mean the story kind of like shoots off from like a pilot welcoming a flight and the attendants, and then there's a man that kind of like stood out, and they couldn't make sense of who he is. I mean, not to give every detail out, but there comes a certain point in time where assumptions kind of like led to like a real harm. Like people were not asking like the necessary questions. Like they were not like curious enough to ask what the necessary questions are, and this kind of like led to like a real life harm. So I would say like we looking at our like internalized bias and stuff like that could definitely like create harms in the real world. So I would definitely be picking that as my best story out of the book. Yeah.
Thank you, Timmy. Miss Cynthia, how about you?
I gave mine away early on because internalized racism is what I consider to be one of the core issues within our current young adult violence movement. And although the story, and I love the story, I clearly related to the mother-daughter piece. But I think that what I related to most was the difficulty of parenting and not knowing how you're guiding or limiting the futures of your children based upon decisions that you make for them. And
so this is the story of the awakening.
This is
Can you
the
tell
awakening.
a little bit more? Set the scene a little bit. Give them a sense of what's going on. Sean, you bringing some waters for us? Thank you.
Thank you. In class,
Thanks, Sean.
the story was called The Mother's Awakening. It got converted to The Awakening in the book. And I'm glad it did, because when I was reading through the book and looking to see, is this the same story, I literally pulled out my printed copy from class and made sure that I was looking at the same story. Mother-daughter, a daughter comes home from college. She describes her community, the community that she left, and it's exactly like she left it when she went to college. And her mother, who is a single parent, so glad to have her daughter come home for the first time after 2 years, has prepared everything to make it wonderful for her, like to let her know how much she loved her. And the daughter comes home armed and ready for a very difficult conversation. And when I say difficult, it is that I'm grown up and I have figured some things out for myself. And we need to talk about how your parenting has impacted me. And without really giving the story away, because it's a good story, it's a really good story, it reminded me, if I can take it back, my brother we live in Cleveland. My brother was a student at Charles Eliot Junior High, and the city of Cleveland back in the 60s had a program connected to, and it was called the ABC program, A Better Chance. And it allowed inner city students to go to school in private schools in New England. And he went to Phillips Exeter Academy with the Kennedy kids and Thurgood Marshall's son. And it allowed them to see what an exclusive education looks like. Well, that was what I was thinking about as I was reading the story and all that the mother had done preparation-wise when the daughter comes home. I would love to really share how it felt internally, because I used to be jealous that my brother had this amazing opportunity as a junior high student. Well, he started in the 9th grade, and where he went from those decisions, but it made him more radical. And I saw her coming back with that radical, and I'm not going to say, well, I would like for you to read the story. I'm not going to share that, because I think that's one of the most significant parts of the story, is her attitude coming home, knowing that she had seen things that her mother had sacrificed for her to experience, but not understanding how that impacted her. So
You make me want to read the story again.
we had a conversation about don't give it away. So
You did it well. All right, last question for the discussants. When you think about anti-racism, how have these stories helped you think differently about what is required to promote anti-racism and what it looks like, how it works? And anyone can jump in who's ready to tackle that one.
Am I on? Okay. I think for me, it gave me a roadmap on how to spread the word. Okay. Because when I told everybody I was in a class, I run into, and I was in your class, and they were, well, tell me something about it, so we get to have that conversation and stuff. It also helped me look at my own self and look at, as an activist, as an advocate in the community, the work is hard. Especially, I live now in Central, especially when we're looking at our lived experiences, we have to change our attitude somewhat in order to help others come out of this, or not maybe change our attitude, but change how we see ourselves. Okay, to help others come out of this. It's, oh wow, yeah. I did a lot of personal growth. You have to come to the terms. One was that black is the color of my skin. It is not my condition. It is not my lived experience. And I got to see that the master narrative is about that you're in these marginalized areas because that's where black folks belong, and this is what, and until we break that, I think somebody supposed to say it earlier, until we break that kinds of thinking, and that's why my work now has changed to, my theme going in is overcoming darkness and defying stereotypes. Okay, and it's about changing mindsets, and so I'm working now with my Artmobile, and I'm working with the library doing art and adult literacy. I like the way that Malcolm X studied the dictionary while he was incarcerated to learn the words. We have to learn the power of the word.
yes,
It's not so much about what you call me. It's about what do I call myself. What do I say to myself? And it has to be, the work is hard because it's a constant thing. I have to keep on like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? I'll tell you, you mentioned I had 27 years of uninterrupted sobriety. About 4 or 5 Christmases ago, I'm going into Target. Not Target, Giant Eagle. They got a beautiful display of wine, beers, and all of that stuff. So I forget what I was going in to get, but I go down the beer aisle. And this Miller High Life beer says to me, oh, it's been a while, you can have just one. I said, ooh, who said that? And I'm like, where'd that come from? You know? So needless to say, I never go down a beer or liquor aisle anymore. Because you have to always be aware of things talking to you.
Yes.
You know, of where I'm at. That's why I love journaling and writing. Because then you get a chance to put your thoughts down on paper and really see what you're thinking, because thoughts and stuff are so fleeting. And I've learned through the recovery process that if you don't handle it with grace, it'll pop back up in your face. And so, so if you don't look at it, you know, and really dissect it, especially if it's really feeling, making you feel ill or at a dis-ease, then we need to look at it. That's why I also love that story where you start off with the guy speaking. I really love, I really love that, the spirituality of it, because a lot of it, our thinking comes from, I believe, is a spiritual dis-ease that we have. We've lost that disconnect. You know, that we are not skin color. We're not black person, white person. We are human beings.
Yes. Yes.
And we are a spirit, you know. Yeah.
Can you imagine having Miss Gwen in class every Tuesday night for a whole semester? It was a joy, absolute joy. Who wants to jump in next? Miss Cynthia?
Yes, I think Miss Gwen hit the nail on the head. We were reading the stories and we were thinking about the messaging and the framework. And the framework was really powerful because it gave definition to multiple aspects of the to the racist and anti-racism recovery. And as a person who had lived through the 60s, who had watched my mother picket Euclid Avenue and the Woolworth store, and my uncle was a leader in the NAACP. I had seen all of that, what that looked like, but then when I found out there was science to go along with it, I thought, oh, this is even deeper than what I really understood. And the class made us focus on it. One of my classmates is here, and I'm so glad to see her. And then I talked about it, and my career coach is here, and he's completed the class. So you find that you have power in your own words and conversation. So the things that you say, the things that I say about experiencing anti-racism, I didn't know that that was the right word to describe fighting a racist environment. The new language, and that was one of the things that empowered me, was I got words to describe how I was feeling and things that I had seen. Mad would just be the emotion, but now I had language to go along with it and to talk with others about it. So I'm so grateful for the 8 pieces of the framework, because the healing piece and going back to West Africa is a part of it's a necessary part. We've got to find places to heal. And I think that I've been reminded about that on multiple occasions in the current political environment. I've decided I cannot stay angry all day long. Right. I can't watch the news because it makes me angry. So I've found that this has helped me to get a lot of emotions under control and recognize I have power to do things beyond just being angry. I can talk. I can use my words. You remember when you're little kids and they tell you, use your words. I have come to a place, and I also journal because it's important to get it out of your head onto paper and then come back and look. And this helped me to do that.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Miss Cynthia.
Yeah, the other panelists have like spoken a lot, but I mean, just to hit the nail on the head, I would say the journaling is perfect. Like, it makes you see things you haven't even acknowledged. Because me, during the class, we had to like do like every week journaling of some things, and it made me even realize my own biases, my perception of things based on what I've heard, what I've seen, and this, I was able to like confront it. And I mean, aside that, it has made me realize this is like it has to be like the class was like everyday anti-racism. So it made me realize that it's an everyday process. You just can't do it and stop. Like, it has to be continuous in your step. And this, the belonging story, when you read it, you kind of see that there are still some, it later like turned into like a tradition, like it's been done just so it could be upheld, really. So I mean, that's just it for me. It's a wonderful piece. Yeah.
Can I say
yeah,
this
please.
right quick? I wanted to say that learning this helps a lot, right? But see, here's the thing that I've learned about knowledge. Once you know something, you can't unknow it.
That's right.
And then you become responsible for that knowledge, okay? So now I see a little bit deeper than before, and so I'm standing in the middle of what needs to be changed, and I feel powerless. You know, because I know it doesn't have to be this way, and I know what it takes to kind of undo it, but you feel powerless because I'm only one. You know, how do we join together and, you know, to change the thing? Yeah.
And I think part of that, and then we'll turn that into a question. Well, you just asked a question. How do we do that? And I think it goes to the part about words and language.
Yes.
If we can't talk to each other and have a conversation, then we do feel like just one. So part of it is at least being able to set some common ground, some common language, some ways to approach this, a common framework, so that we can become connected. We have other folks from the class in the room tonight, which is wonderful. They didn't get enough. They're back out for more, which is a beautiful thing. But all of you all, even if you're in different semesters, there's some things you can immediately connect around.
Yeah.
Right? So I think part of it is giving that grounding. I want to give you all a chance to ask questions of me, and then we'll open up and see what's on our audience's mind after hearing all this. So anyone want to start off with a question?
Okay. Okay, I can go with one, because so I heard, I was listening to the social justice group had free Keith Lamar. Exercise. He had been in prison X amount of years, and he's in solitary confinement, etc. So he says, well, so what are we doing? Okay, what are we doing? In your introduction, you talked about, you said, after a year of reflection, reimagining, and recommitment, we renamed ourselves to better articulate our core mission. So I'm imagining that you guys were somewhere saying, so what are we really doing? Okay, can you expound on that?
I can, absolutely. So Gwen is inviting me to talk about our work that we do at the university. So you heard about NP3, Nurturing People and Power in Place. We are now just celebrated our 12th anniversary, November 7th. And for our first 11 and a half years, we were the National Initiative on Mixed Income Communities. And we were founded and created because there's this policy in our nation to try to address concentrated poverty by intentionally demolishing housing, relocating residents, and creating new housing that is mixed income. And this is what Cynthia referred to. Woodhill Homes is the largest such transformation happening right here in our city on the east side, and we've been working on that for about 5 years. So wind the clock back a decade before that, in Chicago, where we were living, and where I started my research, was studying these mixed income communities. At that time, Chicago went in bigger than any city had, and at one point had 15 different of these mixed income developments. And people thought that, well, just by mixing folks up, you're solving the problem. And that would be amazing if that was the case. But we did years and years of research, interviews, observations, to realize that, yes, you were breaking up concentrated poverty, but as we talked about it, we said, we really now have what we called incorporated exclusion. That you had incorporated people in the same space, but you still had incorporated the exclusion in the new buildings.
Yeah.
And so people were feeling stigmatized. People were feeling monitored. And in fact, in some ways, even worse than before. Because at least before, it's like, well, I'm around a bunch of folks who are in the same situation.
Right.
Now I'm next to folks who look down on me. Now I'm next to folks who... So that's what we had learned from the research. So then, fast forward to 2013, and we launch NIMC to say, okay, let us help folks learn how to implement this policy better. What have we learned, and what can we do differently in terms of being much more action-oriented? So we set about working, again, coast to coast with developers, with planners, with housing authorities to give them advice and guidance about ways to create new communities that really were about social bridging and social weaving and connecting people and empowering people. So at our 10th anniversary, we did exactly what you asked. What are we really doing? What are we really doing? And when we looked at it, we had seen bright spots and flashes of what we thought was possible. But overall, we were still seeing a replication because we weren't finding partners who were willing to go deep enough and stay at it long enough to truly do the social transformation and the connecting that was needed. And so we really did take a long period of reflecting as a team and came out of it to say, we've got to name much more explicitly what we're about. And we can't call it mixed income and hope that if you do mixed income, something good happens. We're about nurturing people and power in place. That's what we're going to hold ourselves to. That's what we're really doing.
Yeah.
Secondly, we got to find partners who want to do that. And so, this is an existential question for us. Check back with us a year from now. Are we still around? Because there were partners willing to do mixed income. Are there partners willing to do nurturing people and power in place? We don't know. But that is what we're really all about. And so we're going to name it. The last thing, or there's several other things, but the last thing I'll name, we called ourselves an impact research center because we want about research that did impact. But we now call ourselves a demonstration and learning hub. And we're about demonstrating, getting out there and doing it. We've researched it. We've learned about it. We've advised people. All right, it's time to just get out there and do it alongside, ultimately working our way out of a job. So we are much more about even deeper, getting deeper into the action. So thanks for that opportunity to talk about that part.
I'm glad that I'm glad you said that because my whole thing is about it bums me out when they always talk about community development, but what about the development of the people?
Yes.
Okay, every time they tear down the projects and stuff, and I took some pictures of one they was tearing down near me on 55th. I'm going to do a art piece. So where are the people? Where are the people at? There was a big tree laying across the front of one of those projects that they were tearing down to keep people from going in them while they were tearing them down. They had been uprooted. Yes. And being an artist, that was profound to me. And seeing kids go to school, walk past this fence, and they still climbing on the fence. That's a hell of a picture. I just haven't got it all together, but it haunts me. So where the people at? You got all of that, and when you look and see how they done tore down everything, you see all this land. You know, like miles of land.
Yes.
So where the people at? You know?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Miss Cynthia, what you got?
I'm going to pick up in the same vein as Miss Gwen, because the intellectualism of what can and should happen is something that is not necessarily a tangible. And corporately, when you find partners and they say they want to do things and they're with you until they're not with you.
Right.
Because during the class that I was in 2024, I was listening to the news and listening to promises that had been made through commitment with Black Lives Matter that flipped as soon as January 21st came, and they started to withdraw and backtrack from those promises. So when you've established your value within the community and partners have said, we are with you, we see your value, and they walk away from you or backtrack, the people are still there. So how do you take the corporate power and the vastness of the corporate impact and then change the hearts and minds of the people?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have a setup where most of our everyday work doesn't rely on someone contracting with us to do it. Because as soon as that comes in, that transactional relationship, then you're asking a certain set of questions about a certain set of outcomes. When instead what it's really about is relational and doing the connecting work and doing the learning work and building trust.
Yes.
Right? But trust is not showing up on the metrics of the transaction that
Come on.
the planners want to do. Now, what we were able to do, it's not that we weren't able to do it, but you weren't able to go right at it. And so what we want to be able to do is go right at it. And the question is, I think there are partners out there. I think we have to be more creative. I'm going to call out my buddy in the stands here for being here, Alex Pesta of City Architecture. But we are now in close partnership with an architecture design firm that has the same values as we have, right? And so there's going to be some unusual partnerships. We have to look for who really gets this, and then we've got to find ways to make that happen. We got to be creative in terms of raising resources. We're going to have some private donors who just say, I believe in this at this time. Seeing what's happening in our country, what's happening to our democracy, and when we say this work is actually democracy building. This is building democracy from the ground up, we like to say. We have to find folks who get that and are willing to put money behind it so that we're not beholden to contract by contract by contract. We cannot get the real work done that way. So it is an experiment. I don't know where this is going, but I do know, back to your question, what we were doing wasn't quite the thing. And now we want to really lean into it. And I'm hoping that there are partners out there who will be there for us.
Trust is the key.
We need another Agnes Gunn. She sold one of her Richenbach, if I'm not saying this right now, one of her famous paintings for some big money, and started an Art for Justice Fund just to end mass incarceration, and she found a bunch of people too, and what they did over 6 years, they just made sure that the money got out to those people, and they talk about her real, her philanthropy.
Absolutely. Timmy, your chance for a question.
I'm just going to be fast about it. I feel like you've asked us what our favorite stories. I think I'm interested to know your perspective about that.
My favorite story? Ooh, so it is kind of like asking your favorite kid.
Right, right.
And since my kids are watching, I'm going to finally answer that question. My favorite kid is no. My kids are a great example. I have such a unique and special relationship with each of them. You just can't even compare it. And it's the same way with these stories. Like each story, I just adore how it came to me. And that's something really important to say. Like, I don't know where these came from, but it's somewhere else. Like it's somewhere mystical. Because the story writing started 2 summers ago. I took a 3-week sabbatical. Melanie and I went and we stayed with friends in California. And I said, I'm going to be up early. You're not going to see me until dinner time. I'm just going to be writing. And people said, well, 3 weeks, what do you hope to accomplish? You got these 8 stories to write. I said, well, if I can get 1 done, I'll be on my way. And I wrote 5. And it was just like opening this portal. Yes. And they just came out. So for each of them, I can just remember the moments where the story began to emerge and they just started. So I have a special relation with each of them. There's one of them that makes me cry every time I read it. And it is the Awakening story. I just love how that story ends. I just love the ending that came from wherever the ending came from. It was a gift. It was a gift, and every time I read that, I just am struck again by the beauty of it. I wanted to tackle, it's the one that tackles maybe the most difficult issue, internalized racism. It's the most pernicious form of racism, because once it gets implanted inside black people, you don't need anything else. That's right. You've won. We'll do it to ourselves. And so finding a way, how could we have a story? And I made it a mother-daughter. I wanted to make it a really loving, nurturing relationship, to put it in a soft place. It was going to be a really hard conversation. But I just loved thinking about the relationship, and I loved being able to equip the daughter coming back. We have a daughter and 2 sons, so of course I was thinking my daughter coming back and the things she told us when she had, been radicalized and learned her. So there was a fun part to that. So I would say that story probably touches me the most. And I really do hope, and it's happened. I mean, it's been amazing, especially to see white people who've read that story and have said, I've never thought about internalized racism among black people. I don't know what is our role in this, if any? And it's been really interesting question to grapple with. Like, I know what black folks need to do about internalized racism. What do white folks need to do about it? But the first step is knowing it's a thing, right? It's happening. And then figuring out, are there ways, as you have relationships and trust, to begin to be able to invite that conversation? It's something we do need to be talking about, or else we're not going to be able to address it. So I would say that one I would name is the one that touches me the most.
Because you raised the question, what should our white counterparts be doing? I brought my project from the class.
Okay.
And needless to say, it has the framework in the center, and it talks about racial equity on the one side, racial justice on the other. And then it's got 2 hands, and they're praying hands. And when I turned it in, and I did very well in the class, mind you. But when I turned it in, Dr. Mark asked me, so why did you use white hands? And I said, because in one of the readings that we had, the author made it clear that it is going to take our white counterparts, brothers and sisters, to really help to undo the damage that has been done. I could have made black hands that would have looked like me, but it's an opportunity to expand the work into other communities. So I went through and brought that with me.
I love that you have that. Thank you, Ms. Cynthia.
Well, listen, I have a folder because this was important and impactful. Thank you.
It's beautiful to see. All right, well, let's see what's on the minds of our audience. We got any questions out there? Earl Ingram, my guy, thank you for being here. What's up, man?
Thank you for having me. A question, what was the intention behind your title? So when I got the invite and I saw the title, I thought it was very telling that it's not this title changing the narrative, but it added in short story activity and then everyday anti-racism. And I think the word anti is so powerful and it's connected to something. The way home with dads, activists, but it took me back to an interview I watched with Ryan Coogler when he was describing his backdrop in Wakanda Forever. And it was the first time that I had heard someone reference his filmmaking that there was not a villain in the story, there was an anti-hero.
Yes.
And it intrigued me from the onset, and then when I had an opportunity to watch the film, I thought it was presented so well from the standpoint that it really wasn't a villain in the story. These were two entities who were facing similar struggles and had been pinned by society to kind of go against each other. So from that standpoint, I'm just intrigued to see why you added that caveat in and what is your backdrop on the intentionality in the title and adding in anti-racism.
Okay, wow. Well, first of all, thank you, Earl, for being here. Earl is a partner in the Woodhill Redevelopment Initiative. He's actually the co-chair of our steering committee. He works with youth at the Boys and Girls Club. And back to what I was saying earlier about being in different partnerships. We're in a partnership now with Earl and his youth and really hoping to be working together on some design projects in the community. So this is the kind of place where we want to be doing our work. So the anti actually goes into a conversation that was started probably in this country 3-4 years ago, the publication of Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Yes. And he made a core argument that really, was massive for me and I think so many other people, which is to say what we often spend our time saying is there's racism, and we just say, I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm just doing me. There's racism, there's bad stuff, bad people. I'm not a racist, I'm good. And what he said is there's actually just a choice. That either you're doing racist things or you're doing anti-racist things. If you're not actively anti, to the core part of your question, if you're not actively anti, the system and the flow and the dynamic is so powerful, you're going along with it. I think of it as a river that's flowing. And there's this river of racism that's been flowing for centuries. And you're in a boat on the river. And you say, I'm not racist, but your boat is floating down the river. Unless you're actively turned around and rowing against it. So that's the anti part. You have to row against the stream. You have to be an anti-racist. And then it's like, well, what is this anti-racist thing? What is this language? What is that? So that's what then the framework and the discussion starts to be. What are the actions that you take to be rowing against the river? And it turns out it's got to be actions in your mind and how you think, and in your actions, and how you play that out every day. I also want to touch on, I don't know if you're wondering about it, but I'll take this chance to jump on the first part of the title in terms of changing the narrative. Those who have read the first part of the book will see I explain it, but it has multiple meanings. So first of all, changing the narrative is really the overall theme of what we're doing here. We have to change the narrative about how we got here. There's a story, there's a narrative. What is the truth about how we got where we are? And what's the truth about what's possible? And I think this is particularly important right now, because there's a feeling of despair, given everything that we've seen and the possibility and the way in which things are now being turned back and the clock is being turned back. So many of us are feeling like, maybe this is how it goes. Maybe this is how it goes. And we have to change that narrative. And so pretty much every story tackles the theme of how do we have a different way of thinking about what's possible. So that's one. Within every story, there is a bit of a twist and a narrative shift. And so there's also changing the narrative even within the story. Third, I have done a lot of writing over my time, but it's all been scholarly writing or policy writing or practice type writing. So I'm changing my narrative into fiction writing. as a different way of approaching sharing that out. So that also was the changing the narrative as well. But again, thanks for being here, Earl. Appreciate you. Yes, please.
Yes, I was here last night.
There you go, just for the recording.
Thank you, okay. I was here last night for Omari Sousa's book, Design Against Racism, Creating Work That Transforms Communities. And as you spoke about the work you do with partners in terms of creating mixed income communities, you know, you mentioned these partners, but not one time did you mention the people who live in these communities. I get so many calls almost daily from people over there in this last complex that has been torn down, people who feel very disconnected. They don't have a sense of belonging. And until we involve the people who are being affected by these projects, I mean, the architects are okay, the developers are okay, but you need to be talking to the people who are going to be affected by the project. And Gwen, I thought you were headed this way when you talked about that uprooted tree, because it isn't just a tree. For me, that was symbolic. You're uprooting the people who live there. And some of these people will not be able to go back into those neighborhoods. And those are the people who are calling and are very disgruntled with the fact that they are being pushed out of those neighborhoods. Most low-income communities, especially those with high poverty indicators like the ones I've been working with, they're very insular communities. They're communities that have worked and their families live there, their grandparents live there. And even though some of them may have moved up, become teachers or whatever, they come back and live in those same neighborhoods. So when you uproot, like the tree, you uproot the people who live there and you break those families up. You know, until we began to talk to the people, get their input about how to make these mixed income neighborhoods successful for everybody, I have questions about the process.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, let's hold on for the microphone so that you get recorded. I think something good's coming.
So I'll just say that we get calls, text messages from community people when we are in another continent. And Mark takes those calls and text messages. And I'm talking about many people. So Mark is, and I don't know if you're going to explain how much you're involved with people in the community. I mean, there are stories upon stories, and I don't know all of them, but I just want to say that Dr. Mark is invested almost as much as marriage in people in the community. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, if I could, I see about the changing of your name because I've always wanted to talk to you about that. I was going to get on you about that mixed income thing. Okay. Because I saw that, how was that going to work? Mixed income, how was I going to feel being, you know, I'm making one income, somebody else making the other thing. I said, how is that going to work different from the projects? How is that going to work and how is that going to solve any kind of problems? And I also want to say, them buildings still look like projects over there, you know, like that. But I love the way your explanation about changing the name because God changed everybody's name in the Bible and they gave them power, you know, because I think that when the words do give us power, and once you change those words, they'll give you direction. So I really like that part because I'm glad you explained that to me because as much as I love you, I was going to say, why are you doing mixed income? You know?
So since you mentioned God, and that's my department,
Okay.
let me just speak to the belonging in the framework. I think that is the place. And the story about belonging really starts from a place of insular, lacking relationships. But it's intentional to move forward into community. And I think that the story that is written is a perfect example of how belonging really starts with the idea of being able to recognize that you are insular and want to invite others in. So it really, and I did work at Woodhill, and I know the community and the families and the generations of families who were there. And I worked with a lot of them. And there are a lot of systemic issues that don't change because the place changes. Ooh. But when the internal attitudes and when you are curious enough to want to know about neighbors, and people become more than just their income or their color or their car or how they dress or don't dress. It's the belonging and the desire to know that makes the difference. And the belonging story is a good story. It's a really good story.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. So 2 cool things happened just now from my wifey. 1, she stood up for me, which is always lovely. 2, she called me Dr. Mark, which is kind of like that. Kind of like that. I really appreciate your question because it just helps me make sure I'm crystal clear. We are in this to work with people. We've been working with the people all along. I was talking about the partners to indicate, you asked what we were doing, and we were being driven by the partners with whom we could get these contracts to do the people work and the place work. And what we realized is there was only so far we could get. It allowed us to do people work. So we've been doing the people work all along, and you can talk to me, you can talk to others, you can talk to Debbie, you can talk to Earl. They can tell you stories about the resident stewards who are emerging, the leaders in these communities, the resident empowerment fund where residents are doing grant making to other residents. So we can tell you those stories. So absolutely, thank you for giving me the chance to say very clearly, that is the work. What we need to do is be able to just go straight to that.
Yes. Yes.
Because it takes the kind of intentionality that these stories tell, and we need to be able to be exactly explicit what we're doing and why we're doing it. So thank you for making sure we made that clear. Earl, you wanted to say something?
Dr. Mark, I just wanted to jump in too and to speak to your question. Just quickly, I apologize. To just piggyback off of what his lovely wife just said, the issue is the river. And to go back to my point, just hearing that breakdown, when he said there's no villain here, there's just another anti-hero. I think oftentimes what kind of gets lost in the shuffle is we're feeling like voices aren't being heard in the processes, but we're fighting against the river. The river symbolizes multiple things in that space. She said, from myself to Debbie and Miss Cynthia, who I've had the pleasure to work with, there's a river, and that is the battle. So we honor you, we honor the community, the voices. We are working hard, and I can say for myself, this is someone who works tirelessly at this craft of trying to make sure this works seamlessly. So as his wife said, he is picking up the phone. He is showing up to places. He's showing up to birthday parties, bar mitzvahs. He's showing up to small community events. And you don't see that type of engagement and intentionality from people who are saying that they're doing so many things in the community. But this is someone who I can vouch for. And I wanted to just add that in and let you know that we are here working our butts off, but no one more than Dr. Mark. And that's one of the reasons I'm here tonight.
Thank you. I just would like to make sure that it's a reciprocal process, that you're not just out there, but they are in here as well. It's a reciprocal process that's working.
And we received that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the response.
Thank you all. I'm cognizant it is a weekday evening, and our folks here and on live stream have hung in there with us. I want to give you a chance for just quick closing thought. So when you imagine the book being read, out there somewhere, who's reading this book? In your ideal, who do you hope is reading it, and what is the setting of that reading? When you think about one of the places this book is being read, what's some place you would leave us with where you hope it's being read and discussed? And maybe we'll start with Timmy down at the end. We'll come back.
One place I feel like it's been read is where the decisions are being made. itself, like the rooms of people that like dictate how things are done, the policy that are being changed. I feel like that's the necessary place to start from, aside we doing thinking about it ourselves. So I feel like starting from the rooms where the decisions are being made, it should be like the starting point for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Timmy. Miss Cynthia?
I would like the children, the very, very young children, to have a sense of understanding, belonging, curiosity, especially, truth. Children have to understand that there is such a thing as truth, and that the truth doesn't necessarily come from places that are authority, and you can't have your own truth. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that my truth is different than someone else's. There is truth. So I'd like to see little people, young people, able to really hear their own value. And as soon as they can understand yes and no, that they would hear the narrative and change it so it grows differently and starts from a different place instead of a place of changing the narrative.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. Miss Gwen, bring us home.
I'm with Timmy on a lot of ways. Oh, I keep forgetting. I want to, our everyday people, our mothers at home, those who go vote. Yeah, well, so that they can, we need to change these mindsets so that you won't be voting for people that are not about doing what they say they're doing. We got to watch who we vote for. We got to watch the food, what we buy, those people that come in our neighborhood. Here, read this book and quit bringing trashy food in my neighborhood. Those kind of things are political people, those who have power over the purse strings. And when they're talking about changing, if you want change, if you really want change, then this is what we got to do. Here's how you do it. I want to thank you for sharing the last part, what you just did, and what you were saying, because it's going to help me with my work, because I have funding now where I can go straight to the people, and I don't have to. I don't have those reins on me to do nothing but change mindsets. And I'm going to invite you to one of my conversations at the Woodland Library, and I'm working with the library. And I just want to take, oh, forgive me. I feel my mother's presence in the room.
Yes.
And I want to thank her for encouraged me to read. She sort of like, that was her mantra to me. You're going to stay in them books. I don't care whether I like to draw or not. She'll put that frivolous stuff away. You're going to stay in them books, you know. And every time I turn around, I'm in a book. And then when I got the contract with the library, I said, Mama, you somewhere pulling strings, and you done gave me the whole damn library. Okay? You know. But it's important that, one, we got to get to the people to teach them. That's why I'm working on adult literacy, because the kids don't read because the parents don't read.
That's right.
Okay? I'm looking at those kinds of things to change people's mindsets. We really have to do that and get closer into it. And so while I have that opportunity, and thanks for giving me some direction on how to carry my program further and Look for me to call you. You owe me one, okay? All right.
I owe
Thank
you
you.
many. I owe you many.
Right.
Please
Thank
join
you.
me in thanking our wonderful discussants.